Hey everyone, it's Lindsay here with Primrose Cottage Quilts, and today we are going to work on our second row for the Let Freedom Ring row by row. So this row here, I've already made my row, and I just wanted to show you guys. So this is the block, and you're going to make 6 of them. So to start, you will turn to page 5, and it's called the Sparkler Star Block. I'm going to put my instructions over here. So you should have all of your pieces cut, and this block, when I was testing it, I was having a hard time with this piece right here. And at first I had it in two separate units. So it was like this had a seam, so you were making not a quarter square triangle, but a 3. I don't know what those are even called, but they're so annoying to trim. And then it created this really massive blob of a seam. And I'm like, okay, what can I do to make it so this is more flat and that everything looks, crisp and nice? And with the seam in the middle right here, it did not look good to me. So I found a way to make this unit without a seam in the middle. And there is some waste, but I'm okay with it because in the end, your block lies so much flatter, and it's actually super easy to make. And I'll be doing this method in the future because it really made a huge difference. Okay, so for this block, you're going to start with your focal print. If you're using the same line of fabric I am, I picked the trucks with the white background. If you are using your own different fabrics, I would choose a really fun focal piece that you can show off. And the way we're gonna make this a square and a square, instead of like having it on point and doing triangles, we are gonna sew with squares and trim, which again, there's a little bit of waste, but in order for my block, the print to be going the right direction, instead of being like this where the trucks are diagonal, I was able to keep them like this. So that's the reason I use this method. So you're going to start with your A, and you're going to take a B square, and I've already done all of my marking from corner to corner. I mark everything, even if it's a tiny square. It just keeps everything more accurate. So you're gonna place it the top left. You can pin if you like. I am not a pinner, but I know some people prefer pins, and you're gonna sew on your line. So I'm gonna do that really quick. Okay, as you can see, I've sewn directly on my line. Have my threads there. I also hate trimming threads. It's one of my least favorite things. Okay, so we're going to trim a quarter inch from the seam allowance. I'm using my favorite ruler to trim. It's a Creative Grids. So trim, and then I'm going to press my seam. I don't press it open, I just press the seam out. So let me show you the back. Okay, So we have our first corner on. Now we're going to repeat that on each side. So to make this process go faster, to make all 6 of your blocks, this is what I did. I had all of my pieces cut out, ready to go, and then I chain pieced. So I did opposite corners so I could chain piece both of these sides without taking it and trimming it. So you would chain piece all 6 of these. And I do want to mention too, you could like really scrappy this by picking a different center, excuse me, for each block. So if you have lots of fun novelty 4th of July prints, then this is an excellent opportunity to use those fun prints. So back to what I was saying, chain piecing. So I would chain piece all 6 of these 2 pieces, and then trim them all, press them all, and then do my other corner. So I'm just going to do this side. Okay, so I did my opposite side. So if I had to make all my blocks, I would do all 6 and then come back, and we're now going to put the other corners on. And you want this overlapping. It's actually very important that you overlap it, because if you weren't overlapping it, you would not get a point here. So next, if you're a pinner, you could pin both of these on, take all 6 to your machine and chain piece them through. Okay, so I did my other sides. I trimmed a 1/4 inch away from my seam line and I pressed it. So now you have your square and a square, and I'm just going to set this aside while we assemble the other part to this block. So for the next part, you will need your D rectangle and your E squares. And I've marked all mine corner to corner. And what you're going to do is make a flying geese unit, and same thing, I would chain piece all of these at once. That's how I did mine, and it goes pretty fast. So I have this lined up. Well, let me do it so it's like the picture in the diagram. It looks like I did this side first. So on your line, trim a 1/4 inch away of your seam line. Okay, so I just sewed on my line. I'm gonna trim, and this is a pretty basic, the flying geese block. I believe we will be using these again for some of the other blocks, so it's something, I wrote the instructions for the basic instructions in your booklet on page 2. So if you need a little bit more in-depth instruction on flying geese assembly, you can refer to that page. Okay, so now I'm going to do my other side. Again, you want the overlapping so you get a nice corner right there, or point, I should say. Okay, so I've just sewn my other square. I'm gonna press this. And I find if I am really good about marking, and when I do my flying geese this way, yes, there is some waste. I feel like I get, I don't really have to do any trimming. Whereas if we were to do the 4 geese at a time method, I feel like you get some really wonky pieces and you have to trim. I don't need to trim this. It's like perfect size. So we have our flying geese unit. I'm going to set it like this so I can show you the next part. This is where we're going to get this nice seamless piece. So you're going to take your C-squares, and I've marked my line, and so basically we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to turn our marked line so it's going in the opposite direction. So it wouldn't make sense if I put it here and sewed on this line. Like, that would make no sense. So make sure you're going the opposite way. And like I said, you could pin. So I'm going to sew on that line. And now I'm going to trim a 1/4 inch from my sew line. And so this is your waist. Something this small, like, I really don't mind, but if you really wanted to save this and make some type of tiny block, you definitely could do that. Okay, so I'm gonna press this. And I definitely recommend, you know, pressing. Don't like move your iron like this. You do not want to stretch these triangles or you're gonna get wonky pieces. Okay, so you can see we're getting that nice diamond shape by sewing these on. So now we're gonna do the opposite side, and we want to make sure we're going in the opposite direction as this piece. So I'm gonna go sew this really quick. Now I'm gonna trim and press. Okay. So here it is. And you're gonna have 4 of these per block. So like I said, I would chain piece these all at once. So you would need to make 24 of these. And so I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then we will assemble the block. Okay, so I have my rows sewn together. All I need to do is sew them to make my block. I will point out, I lost my point here. If you are having a hard time keeping those points, then do like a scant 1/4 inch seam when sewing these units on. I tend to do a thicker 1/4 inch seam when I sew, but as long as you keep it consistent, you'll be fine. So you're gonna sew those together. You're gonna make 6 blocks, and then there is sashing between your blocks. And I want to point out, I would wait to put the sashing piece that goes on the beginning of your row and the end of your row. And the reason I would wait is because no matter how hard we try to have a perfect quilt and perfect block, sometimes we're off. So this is my row, this is the end of my row, and I've left this strip off because once I'm done with all of my rows, I'm going to measure them all, and if I need to make an adjustment, if I need to make this strip wider, then I can do that instead of sewing it on, realizing, oh, I'm like 1.5 inches short, and having to rip it out and do a new strip. So that would be my tip, is to wait to sew these pieces on until you are ready to assemble your quilt. In row quilts, I don't assemble, like I wouldn't, this is my preference. I wouldn't sew the row we just did to this row so I could be like ahead of the game. I would wait to sew all my rows together at once so I know, okay, I need to be able to work in 1 inch on this row, or, you know, instead of like having to unpick things later or realizing, oh my gosh, I'm like short by like 4 inches or you know. So next month we are going to be doing the flag row, which is one of my favorite rows, and it is very simple. I think you guys are really going to enjoy putting that one together. If you have any questions, let me know. I still have patterns for sale in my Etsy shop. You can get a PDF pattern or a paper copy. And don't forget to post on Instagram. And I'm going to go on there tonight and look at all your rows. And if, like I said, if you have any questions, you can leave a comment below or message me on my Instagram. So I'm excited to see your progress, and I will see you next time.